Hold on. Guys, Sam, for the first time in his life, has not been able to talk over you to get in. So I'm going to actually let him have a word
Look,
here.
I couldn't agree more. And so the way we've been playing this.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to another week of More or Less with the Lessons. How's it going?
And
with the lessons and the morons.
Oh.
Yes. Forgot about that intro.
Okay.
What if it was just you and Sam running this pod?
Lesser.
All I have to say is thank God for the morons. I apologize. My brain is elsewhere, but now it is firmly planted in More or Less with the morons and the lessons. And we actually need you guys because you did the homework this week and actually watched all these developer conferences. So I'm more grateful than normal.
To be clear, Britt did the homework. I never do homework. So
yeah, no one mixed that up, Dave. Don't worry. No one mixed that up. But yes, it's been another week here in Silicon Valley, a busy week. We had, as we discussed on an earlier pod, a bunch of announcements, sort of the annual dev conferences for Google, and then always attempting to front run. OpenAI had an event showing off some new capabilities. Should we start there? I know that the cheerleader Sam Lessin for All AI really wants to talk about this topic, but I feel like we have to go there this week. So, Britt.
It's all marketing.
This is what Dave was saying too, and I was actually quite compelled by the Google I/O presentation.
That's because you like marketing.
I like Google as well. Okay, to be clear, I think we should also compare and contrast with the OpenAI presentation this week.
You mean the part where they fired all their senior researchers?
Well, so it was Monday
We're off to
or
a good
Tuesday
start
night.
here.
And
do we get a redo? Do we get a redo?
Dave comes upstairs after we put our kids to bed, and I'm in the bathroom just chatting away with GPT, like while I'm brushing my teeth. I'm just asking it all kinds of questions. I'm, learning about new things. And like I said, my prediction for 2024 is that by the end of this year, it's not going to be so weird to just be talking to yourself or talking to your AI while you're in the bathroom brushing your teeth. And I think we all got to get used to this. So,
what did you ask it? What were you asking it? Like,
it's still pretty weird.
What are these questions you have in life that like a middle intelligence digital scraping of the internet is going to answer for you in the bathroom?
Am I the only person that has random questions throughout the day when I notice things?
Like what?
I mean, my 5-year-old today asked me why the Spanish Steps in Rome are called the Spanish Steps. And I was like,
yeah, and I can understand if he were brushing his teeth, why that would be very important for him to look
Sam,
up.
have you lost all your childhood curiosity? I ask it all kinds of things about health, and I was asking it about flossing versus mouthwash. It's just like
they're very different, Brett. They have nothing to do.
Well, dentists will tell you that there are different pros and cons to flossing versus using mouthwash, by the way.
You have to floss. You can't skip flossing.
I don't floss.
I know.
Anyway, so I don't know. I just have random questions to ask it. And I do it while I'm doing other things, like organizing my closet. So
here we are talking about AI again.
Oh my God.
Okay, I'm going to take us back to the news of the week.
Okay, Google I/O was really interesting, I thought, for a lot of reasons. One, call it marketing, whatever. They are definitely rolling out even more AI interaction and especially AI agents across the whole suite of Google products, from Gmail to Google Workspace, Chat, Google Meet. There was a really cool demo of Gemini in Gmail, which you can ask it to summarize all your school's emails, for instance, which I definitely want to start using because I get 10 emails a day from my school. Then you can automatically add those things onto your calendar if you're using Google Calendar. If you like the Google Meet that your school did of some sort of presentation, it can give you all the notes that happened during the virtual presentation. It's a lot of interesting things.
That mentions one thing. If you told me I would use an AI that I could dispatch onto large Zooms as me, can log in, review them, and just send me notes. That is an actual use case. It has to look like me because otherwise it wouldn't be allowed in. But if there was a thing which is like anytime you see an invite to a meeting that's digital with more than 5 people on it, instead of you going, it just blacks it in your calendar and it dispatches an agent to go just summarize it for you. That is something I would use.
Well, now you can.
Can it speak on your behalf?
Doesn't need to. These things are all camera off bullshit, right? It's like if you just told me like there was a button which is like don't do large meetings anymore.
That reminds me of a quick tangent. You guys know like GLG, the expert network?
Do we? Love GLG.
Sam loves you. But basically, venture capitalists and other people pay a lot of money to have people who purport to know something about a topic be an expert on it. Someone told me they had their first one where the person was a bot. And it took them about 15 minutes into the call to realize they weren't actually talking with a real expert.
That's a heck of a lot more about GLG than it does about the state of bots.
And it was a GLG competitor. It was not GLG that was doing
Okay, because I was going to say, suddenly I don't want to use GLG.
You shouldn't, but for other reasons. So
when I left GLG, they used to pay me like $5,000 an hour to like talk to hedge funds. And I did it a few times.
Wait, you worked for GLG?
They
No, he
call
was
you
in the
like,
network.
hey, you're used to be an executive. Do you want to be on a council of some bullshit? And then hedge funds call you and ask you questions. And, you know, they have like a moderator on because they've gotten into big trouble with insider trading like years and years and years ago. But it, like I did like a few of them. It's actually, they paid an insane amount of money because hedge funds don't care. They just pass it on through to their LPs. But the calls were so boring that despite getting paid way too much money, I just had to stop doing them because the people were so dumb asking questions. It was like extremely frustrating, bad for your mental health.
So relatable, yeah. But so Britt, I think if we take a step back here, my takeaway from both what OpenAI showed, which was basically the next version of their model that, again, is powering ChatGPT and that businesses are accessing through various APIs. And there's always a new suite of capabilities, from being more multimodal in terms of taking photos or doing more with language, or OpenAI was showing not replacing you in a meeting. I actually thought this feature sounded super annoying. The AI is in the meeting and then attempts to like summarize. So they'll be like, so Britt, you're more pro this, and Sam, you're more. So I think that makes meetings longer and more annoying. But you see this suite of like basically cool, interesting things that A, are still in demo mode, and B, just kind of move the ball forward a little bit. But this is why I think Google is so well positioned, because little things, you know, the 12 things you mentioned, Brett, if 2 get stickier, right? Some great new email writing feature that you don't even know you're using that is going to jumpstart your usage of Gmail, that totally makes sense to me. So I think these events, to the marketing point, they're there for investors and they're there for talent, but like consumers are just going to be kind of infiltrated by a lot of this tech, I think.
I think, largely it brought Google up to parity with a lot of what OpenAI has announced. Like they have a new video tool called VO, which is sort of like OpenAI's Sora. You know, they're really.
But the Sora thing is,
but these aren't even things yet. These don't even exist, right?
Okay, so call them announcements. I think the net of what people thought after I/O was, okay, Google, it really is infiltrating this across every single product, across Android, across Google TV, across YouTube. There's a lot of new products they're testing as well. And not only are they up to parity, they might be taking a step ahead. And for me, it got me to believe that Google and Apple, I continuously believe, are going to be the last remaining horses in this race. Like I think OpenAI and Meta, fine. I think OpenAI comes off as not my favorite horse in the race because they just have these huge ecosystems they're deploying this on with so many users already. And like, I do think it's going to hinder a lot
shocked. I'm shocked that this is where we've ended up. This is obvious. This has been the case for like 2 years. This is how it's going to play out.
A lot of people invested in OpenAI wouldn't have thought so.
Or, as I've said, for 2 years are lighting money on fire. Like it's, you know, the good news is they get paid on the fees. So as long as they make reasonable DPI somewhere, they'll be fine. But the upshot is like, yeah, I mean, but to your point, it's like these flashy demos. I'm almost ready to be an AI bull. I've been a bear the whole time, almost ready, because I actually think. You're ready? Here's
wait. It's a big announcement.
Everyone, we're now hitting the trough of disillusionment in real AI, right? Like all the VCs that
I
I
don't
know,
think we're there. I don't think we're
getting there. We're getting there because what's happening is everyone is looking
You're
at these.
off by 2 years, Sam.
Well,
but
I am
keep
getting.
going.
I've been negative
I'm
on the
with
way up.
Jess.
I'm almost ready to be positive because what's happening is everyone's looking at these demos and they're ridiculous, right? They are all obviously marketing set pieces that are not real. And I've actually talked to a lot of investors in public and private markets that are just kind of over it. They're like, ugh, like, which was not the case even 6 months ago. The reality is, to Britt's point, when you think about specific targeted use cases, translation, how do you insert this into existing products at scale, especially ad targeting and ad copy? There's all sorts of things that are actually like real, like powerful cloud tools that are just going to be everywhere. It's going to be really hard to make money on them directly, but it's going to be a huge point of leverage to the big tech companies, I still believe. And so we're not there yet, but I'd argue, like, for instance, the AI sheen of like, oh my God, everything's going to infinity has come off some of these players. And I actually think we might, to Dave's point, we're not quite there yet. But as people get disillusioned with these BS demos, like a little bit further, I think at a certain point, it's going to be time to start buying AI again because people are missing that these things have real value when embedded in existing.
It's all about what part of the stack is. I mean, I was thinking back, Sam, when we went, and this part I was allowed to publish, but we went to Cotu's East Meets West conference last year, and they did a big demo on, it's all AI, because any investor wants to talk about AI. But there was a real breakdown of like the stack in AI, right? And we all know this, but from applications like recommending your email to write all the way down to like nuclear power, it is all part of like the investable AI story. And so I just don't think any smart investors have been playing in where the Googles and Metas and Chat GPTs have. Now, the ones that have gotten it handed to them pretty quickly, but there are plenty of other, I think, ways to invest in AI. And
of course.
But anyway, but it is interesting, Britt, because I was struggling really with this and talking to my team this weekend covering these events because, like, on one hand, it's very easy. And I think it's actually the reporter instinct to kind of be like, oh, it's just all demos, right? I mean, like, and that's it's important to point out, but I also think that, there are interesting things happening with the technology. And then the broader question of how consumers willingly or unwillingly are going to adopt it in their lives and what's going to be built off it is also very interesting. It's just very early. And so we're kind of left with these performances.
Yeah, it's like we're in the phase, Britt, where like, unwind 7 years and you had your Amazon Alexa in your bathroom and you were talking to it. You thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread because your Amazon Alexa would like do math problems for you, right? It's just like not a thing.
Fine, but at the same time,
To be clear, Britt wasn't asking the Alexa to do math problems.
What was she asking?
Play Taylor Swift.
I'm like very embarrassed. Well, I'm embarrassed by the things I talk to my AI devices about, but we can talk about that some other time. Anyway, I think what is interesting is that Google's really rolled this out in a way that's, because they own search, people don't realize they're already seeing AI results now.
Yeah.
Like on the very top of the page. And what Google announced yesterday was that like going to continue to extend these AI results down the page, which really, really sucks for publishers, by the way.
Publishers are dead. Not subscription publishers, everyone else.
And anyone who sells products, whose products are now pushed way down on the page. It's just
Reddit.
Ridiculous. Yeah, Reddit. Yeah.
I will tell you, I had a funny one today where like I was Googling this morning. Do you guys know this Vesta board thing? It's really overpriced, but it's kind of cool. It's like a train style board makes that when like it flips the letters.
Oh, yeah, those are cool. Yeah.
They had a ton of those at the Upfront Summit, actually.
I've had one for a long time. Believe it or not, my mom bought it for me.
It was a gift from your mom, yeah.
It's great. I actually quite like it as like a very expensive piece of art, but I haven't had it working for a while, and I went to like factory reset it. So I Googled this morning, like factory reset.
Wow, these are expensive. I just looked it up.
The funny part about it was I got the AI box with the exact steps on how to factory reset it, which I was like, oh, that's actually useful. It has the right. And then I clicked the first link was like Reddit post which literally just had the exact same steps like in the post. And you're like, oh, that's cute. The quote unquote AI just lifted the answer out of the Reddit page and stuck it at the top of the page. But since it's quote unquote AI, it's like gives Google the license to one box whatever they want and just call it AI.
Have you
Right.
guys heard of this term? Hold on, I'm going to embarrass myself here, but it's relevant. RAG.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Are you technical people? But so basically, RAG is retrieval augmented generation. And it's basically these AI LLMs have been trained on everything under the sun and they've been trained. But to build trust with consumers, to get a correct answer to questions consumers might have, they need facts from, in often cases, more real-time relevant sources, aka in many cases, news outlets, but also Reddit and so forth. And so all these licensing deals the LLMs are trying to do isn't for training per se. These things have been trained 12 months ago, but it's this layer, which is really important, they believe, to sort of the fact ecosystem. But what you said, Sam, reminds me of that because they're all just sort of trying to cobble search information and other real-time information and other factual information and kind of have these other things that have been trained kind of recognize it, but they're very different steps.
Yeah, the other thing that's interesting that kind of touches into this that goes on, which is all goes back to, it's funny. It literally is all the problems social networks have had with quote unquote, what is truth all over again, just on steroids. Like there are no new problems, right? But the other way this is being approached is good old contractor networks, scale.ai, like BPOs, like all these types of guys. And then you get into this really interesting problem, right?
The same thing we did in social.
That's my point. It's like this is literally just content moderation 2.0 on huge steroids. So there's this whole industry that's evolving, and the BPO industry is pivoting around like, okay, initially we just had people doing simple labeling, right? Being like, oh, like, is this a square? But now we're going to end up with like a bunch of this stuff, people trying to use those same sets of people to validate facts. The problem is then you have a huge human quality problem because you, like, for instance, you take like, okay, you have a bunch of contractors in the Philippines like validating facts. It's like, what are they validating them based on?
Yeah.
Right. And like, how does that work? I am sure you talk about like where leverage is in the system, like reCAPTCHAs and like, you know, what is this a picture of? Right. Is just going to become like a backdoor feeding mechanism, right? For like validating shit for like, but so my basic point is history is just going to rhyme on this. We're going to have all the same problems on steroids, which is you have this intersection of what's been written down on the internet, plus, you know, how do you validate it with humans and third-party trusted sources, and how do you mix it all together in a somewhat credible way that gets you any sort of representation of reality? And the big message I'd have to people is like all the business models that have already had problems and been tried here will just be tried again with more higher stakes on steroids. And look, there'll be some cool parts, there'll be a mess, and that's kind of where we're at.
Dave, what was your take on the sort of news of the week? Was it just sort of eye-rolly, or what are you thinking about post these announcements?
Do I have to say something?
Yes.
You just did.
Are you a less, Dave?
Yeah. Well, Britt, we were talking about it last night, and I think I'm in the same position as Sam on this, which
Think hard about that.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Well, my response was, I'm really confused by Google's announcements because there's so much of it, right?
Yeah.
If I was to contrast just OpenAI versus Google, it's like really clear what OpenAI launched. And it's really confusing what Google launched. And Britt's point to me was like, well, Google has like a lot more going on. And I'm like, that doesn't mean you can't simplify the message, you know, dramatically to like what really happened.
Well, Google also has a lot more stakeholders, just to be clear. It's not
That's
just
true. And so I don't want to get down on it for that reason. But I guess my response is similar, I think, Sam, to what you were saying, which is that the reality of this technology is not where the hype is, even remotely. Like, it still hallucinates all the time. Yes, you can augment it using RAG techniques and many others. Yes, you can, you know, string together many, many different things to make the quality improve. But Sam, you're right. It's not dissimilar to the kind of stuff we had to do in social to try to improve the outcomes. And yet, you know, I was talking to somebody this week about Facebook Marketplace, and I guess it's just like absolutely just rife with fraud and like nonsense listings, and it's just like full of garbage, yet everybody's still using it for some reason.
For people who don't know, this is their Craigslist, eBay like product.
Which is hilarious because we go on it, it's selling you like utter shit. But to Dave's point, it's huge.
It's huge, but it's still full of garbage, just like most forums on the internet, right? Just like most social networking is just full of a lot of garbage that has to be either filtered by technology or people, right? And so this question of how do LLMs live alongside of us in a way that's high enough quality to actually improve the everyday workflows of knowledge workers and people all throughout society? I don't know. I was saying to Brett, I think the biggest news of the week is that OpenAI made their most powerful model available for free. Like the most interesting stat that I saw this week was that it was something like 5% of people that have interacted with ChatGPT have used GPT-4. And so now that will be available to 100% of audience. And
but my pushback to Dave on that was like, they have to compete with 100%. Google. They have to compete with all these people.
This is a death battle for OpenAI. They didn't release a new model. And what they did do is they just made their existing model that was expensive, cheap / free, because they have no option, because everyone else is going to open source stuff and they have 15 competitors. And look, this goes back to the point, which is like, you're not going to make money on base models. Yeah. Right? They're going to be competed to zero. Right. Yeah. And that's why you have to have it. That's why this whole conversation on the consumer experience is so critical, because no one is going to make money, right, on the base models. There is no developer model that's going to make you a ton of money. It has to be controlling interface. And guess what? Just like mobile, everyone's like, the shift to mobile changed everything. The shift to mobile changed nothing. All the biggest companies just won more. And that's exactly what's going to happen again here.
Yeah. I think so. I have one other area of thought that's been coming out of all of this week. I guess it's a more meta or macro thought, which is I really like this framing that we're in the mainframe era of LLMs right now. A lot of people have tried to compare this using the internet wave, right? And I think that it's very hard to compare what's going on to the internet wave, because LLMs are not networks, they're computers. And they're very simple. It's like you put in a bunch of things happen inside a box and output comes out. And that's a computer, not a network. And so I really like this notion that we're in the mainframe era. And if you go back to the mainframe era of computers, it's like the computers were the size of an entire building. They required all this babysitting by like a group of people that were taking care of the computer in the building. These AI systems are identical, right? When you're running trainings, they require an immense amount of babysitting. If the data gets corrupted or something happens, you have to rerun it again. There's all this babysitting that goes on. And by the way, the overarching narrative of where we're at right now is like, oh, there's really only going to be like 5 of these things. That's identical to what Thomas Watson was saying about computers, right? He said there's a market for 5 computers in the world. And I just don't believe this. Like, I think that what's happened with the personal computer is likely to happen with LLMs. And I know I've been saying this for a long time.
Maybe 3, depending on I guess it depends on how fragmented you consider the national ones are.
Well, but that's not the case for computers, right? Like, computers continually got smaller and cheaper and more personal.
Maybe,
right?
But it depends how you look at it. I'd argue like how many computer there's Apple, there's Android, there's Windows, right? So like, again, I'm obviously stretching the point. There's obviously billions of computing devices in the world.
It's maybe where it ended up, but in the middle zone, it wasn't. It started with IBM, and then it broke into, Compaq and Dell and all these different players, and Apple. And, the computing revolution went through this cycle of decentralization and power to the people. And like, I actually am really interested in that narrative over the, let's just keep debating about whether the big ones are going to be the thing that we use 5 years from now. I think that, what we're probably going to see from Apple and others and the open source community is that people want to run these things on their local machines. They want to run very personal data. They don't want to upload their entire library of emails or library of photos or to the cloud. They don't want all of their chats to be logged into a cloud system that's doing this. And they want to run it on their own machine and have some privacy and do their own things with their own computer. And I think that ethos is going to play out in this realm over the next 10 years as powerfully as like the centralized ones do. And so I guess like I prefer to think of it in that dichotomy, and like how is that going to play out?
Well, but it probably, like everything else, will re-centralize. It's just not necessarily, to be clear, in a mainframe way, but kind of in a cloud service way, which is
Sure.
Amazon's going to be way better at running these things than you are, right? So sure, you'll have baby one on your, it's just going to be more compute. Like you'll
Yeah.
have it on your phone. It's all going to be the same, like 2 or 3 open source fundamental projects that are branched a billion ways and copied everywhere and run by the same players.
But I guess that's very different than there just being 5 large models that we all interact with as like the core way that we interact with this technology. Like that's a very different narrative than the one you just said.
It's a little semantic, David, though, because on the under error layer might just be those 5 things, right? Just like there's only really 4 or 5 operating systems in the world, but it doesn't matter because there's like layers and layers on top of it, like, and it's splintered and fragmented and not centralized. So I guess it's a little semantic, but like the argument that there really aren't that many computer platforms in the world. There are a lot of computers, but there aren't that many platforms, right?
But Dave, are you saying you think the local versus cloud thing I think is also important because then it you might handicap the different horses in the race differently, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you take Apple as an example. So there's no way I think that this isn't ultimately needs a cloud backend, right? I mean, you could do some stuff locally, but
no, I think that there's going to be quite a lot that you can do locally over the long term.
There's going to be both. It's just like your iPhone's more powerful than like all the computers in the world in 1990, whatever the dumb statistic is, right?
Exactly.
And there's 100 bajillion times more compute in cloud services. It's just yes, right? Like to all this stuff.
Yeah.
But again, the question, because I'm a capitalist, is where do you make the money on it, right?
Sure.
What are people underestimating? What are people overestimating? And like, I think my cards are pretty transparent on that.
So Sam, what's your latest where you think the most money will be made?
By Meta, Google, Amazon. It's the same story I've been saying for 2 years, right, on this stuff. These guys are just going to pull it in. And then I think on the small business angle, the reality is just like AWS did allow the flowering of a ton of companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see like just a ton of baby companies that operate with so much more leverage because they have access to better computing tools, right? And like you'll see more efficiency, but it's not going to be like there's nothing in the middle, right? I think that's the important part is like tons and tons and tons of little companies will be more efficient and better. And so owning a small company will be better than ever before. And then it's going to be great to hold the stock of the top 5 biggest companies in the world. But like OpenAI ain't nowhere because they're neither, right? And like they're the biggest example of the people who aren't anywhere.
The hard line to draw is when you're starting a startup using this compute that we're talking about, this new kind of computer, you have to make a choice as to what idea that you work on will get better because the underlying LLM computer gets better versus the underlying computer eats you and eliminates the need for you to exist. And I think that's actually been the hardest debate of the year. And it's interesting, even listening to the people running these companies, whether it's the big 5 or OpenAI, they're not even exactly sure what they're going to eat.
Yeah, but the smart ones are all effectively assuming, which I think is the right assumption, at least the entrepreneurs I talk to, that one, like everyone has how they're leveraging AI. They're not AI companies. They're just like, oh yeah, because we can do this, this is just easier. And you're like, great, that makes sense. And 2, everyone is just building things so that switching between the models is like a one-line change and they don't care. Right. Yeah. And they're like, well, this model will be better for this and this model will be better for that. And then in 6 months, it'll change. And it just doesn't matter. Right. Like, which means that there's going to be no margin in it for any of those players. Right. That's what I've seen, at least. I do agree with you that there was a certain class of businesses that presuppose the non-existence of some of these tools. And those guys are fucked. Right. And like anyone who comes in and pitches a model that doesn't exist anymore when AI is 30% better is a terrible investment. But that's just not, those smart operators, I think people are smart enough to not do that at this point.
Well, I'm more interested in the nuance that is if you start a business that gets eaten by the power of the model, Sam. It's not the startup founder making the strategic choice between the models. It's more, did I choose a business area that I thought was going to be fine, but then the large models actually became so powerful that they eat entire portions of the ecosystem.
The idea that you're doing something in a space, like you're a layer on top of a large model doing a thing that a large model that's slightly better will obviously do, that's a terrible business to be
But it doesn't
operating.
seem like anybody has like a nuanced take on where that line is. Like the line seems to move pretty dramatically every 12 months right now.
What's a
I
good
don't know.
example, Dave, of something that like, because I think this is a great point, but
There's a lot of creative tools that people have been trying to build over the last year, different creative tools for different creative industries that have AI components, right? Whether that's building stuff for music making, filmmaking, writing. If you remember, like at the very beginning of, I think it was last year, or I guess right after ChatGPT launched or around that time, there were actually quite a few writing tools. There were copywriting tools. There were
like Jasper.
Yeah. And that was,
Yeah.
everyone was talking about that. These were the hard startups. It's super clear that's game over.
No, I think that's a good point, Dave. There's also things like transcription, translation, like that type of stuff. The creative tool stuff is a great call out for sure. I think
there's
you're
this
right.
question right now, like, is learning a thing that you should work in? You've got Sam Altman actually telling people on podcasts and interviews in the last 2 weeks, like, learning is an important area that I would love to see innovation in. And yet, Britt was making the point yesterday that like Google showed up with like this insane learning tool yesterday, I think, right?
Learn
Is that right?
LM. Learn LM, Dave. Yes. You took good notes from my
Is
from my
that
notes.
even a category that will be large
No.
for other
I
startups?
don't think people don't pay anything for learning. They just want learning to be free anyway. So I think it's another thing that's totally
That was
commoditized.
always going to be a bad business, right?
I know, but it's so important. Like we all care about it. It's just like no one's going to pay for it, and all these models are going to like do it
I
anyway.
took a pitch from a founder this morning talking, especially in this space. And my big thing is like, I think there are places where learning is extremely valuable currently, like in professional settings. Like basically the get laid or get paid learning actually is great businesses. But
Wait,
like general learning, what?
What is it?
Not get laid. Not get
Get
laid,
laid or
Dave.
get paid. You got to get laid or get paid.
It is get laid? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought you said get late. Okay.
No, it's like in
Get
life,
laid.
if you're starting a company, you got to be able to explain to the customers of that company why it's going to help them get laid or get paid.
I think this
okay,
is
I'm glad I'm in the get paid part of the business.
This is how I make money. It's very
I'm actually
simple.
not sure what part I'm in.
Yeah, Britt, what part of the business are you in?
I think I play both sides.
Britt does a lot of fertility investing, so she's in the what happens after you get laid part of the business.
There you
No,
go.
it helps you
Okay.
get laid. I don't know. Like
It's the same biological imperative.
Yeah,
It's for people that can't get laid.
it's in the pipeline. Yeah.
the point is that general education is not a way to get laid or paid, right? And therefore is a bad business.
What do you mean? It's a way to get paid.
What?
Learning
No,
technical
that's not-
skills.
that's too abstract for people. It's like get paid is like you pass the SAT, you get your pilot's license. It's like professional training is how you get
buy
paid.
or sell the stock. By the way, we moved Oracle stock substantially this week over at the information.
Up or down?
Up. Big new deal
I didn't even know that was possible.
with XAI, $10 billion deal. Looks
That's
like
bigger than the
Elon's,
market cap of XAI.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, I mean, what's a market cap for a company like that? But
That's what I was going to say. Like that, does that market cap ever move? Like, what do they even do over there?
they're raising $6 billion and they're doing a deal for 10. And so, of course, I mean, obviously the answer is need more money, but it's
Wait, so sorry. So to be clear, what happened is Oracle gave them $10 billion?
no, they're in final stage talks to give Oracle 10 billion. They're also in talks to raise 6.
This math equation sounds funny to me.
Yeah, for sure. For their H100s or whatever these
For
things
Twitter's H100s?
are. No, not Twitter, XAI. This is a different business.
Oh my God.
Keep up. Anyway, it
X's.
was fun. Okay, last point to make on AI. I think Sam alluded to it, but we saw the departure of Ilya, the chief scientist or something of that nature, who was behind the ouster of Sam. So I think we knew that Ilya would not be long for this world, but it just feels like
I think he watched the Google I/O keynote and was like, yeah, it's game over. I'm out.
yeah, I promise you that's not what happened.
That is definitely not what happened.
But
joking.
then the rest
Oh
of
my
his
God.
team is sort of secretly leaving. And
Well, first, before we get into that, say shout out. Can we give a shout out to Mike Krieger, who is good and is moving into the AI world?
sure. So Mike Krieger, Instagram co-founder.
Yeah, Krieger is now running Anthropic's AI product stuff.
Oh, that's
Chief
cool.
Product Officer at Anthropic.
Yeah, like that's awesome. So
That's cool.
that's a positive development. And then Sam Altman's
I do like Anthropic.
he has demonstrated once again the rule, which is, when you shoot at the king, don't miss.
When you shoot the king, don't miss.
That is one of the rules.
He is demonstrating that. Well
Can I
played.
say this, Dave? Can I
say it anyway?
Sam, okay,
Hey,
fine.
no.
Sam.
Tension.
Oh, go
Should
ahead.
I say it?
All right,
I think I can say it.
All right, I know what you're going to say.
You got to trust your wife.
This is the beauty, by the way, of having two married couples on this pod. We're not even in person, but Dave can tell on Zoom that he knows what I'm going to say, so he can approve it.
Oh, no.
Okay, so Sam wrote this whole thank you, goodbye, we appreciate you note announcing the departure of Ilya. And Dave was like, this was so written by GPT. And he could tell because Sam actually never capitalizes his sentences and puts proper punctuation around it. But it was grammatically perfect.
Well,
so
either that or a PR person, but you can't tell the difference anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of doesn't matter which one it was.
So one business you shouldn't get into that will be taken out by AI is writing PR press releases.
Totally.
That's not a business anymore.
Nope.
Game over.
Game over. Okay, so that's the situation over there. Let's switch gears for a second and talk about the streaming media business for a second.
No.
Oh, from the most exciting business in the world to the least exciting business in the world.
Okay, first I'm going to plug something that I think is very cool.
Please stop.
Okay, before I'm going to plug something very cool. Today, the information launched our sports streaming database.
Oh, awesome.
Ooh.
What we did.
I like that you're getting into sports, Jess.
We are getting so into sports, Dave.
This makes me so happy.
We took
I'll write op-eds for that.
every platform, the tech ones and the traditional ones. We took the top leagues and we broke out all their rights deals, who has what.
Oh, interesting.
And then based on when they expire, we color coded them.
Okay, what do we know?
Fancy.
I'm looking this up now.
So here, I'll put it in the chat. You got to be a pro subscriber, which I know you are. You can see, actually, it's just on the top of the website right now.
I could bring it up for people.
Let's scroll down here. You need to be wide. It's, we have to find a way to fit more text into each cell. But you can go and you can say, okay, Disney, look at all the things Disney has. And then you can see if you want to take these rights from Disney, go to the red ones because those are up for grabs. So right now, auto racing, Formula One in play.
Really?
You know who would love to read this is an AI.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The AI could probably also predict
this is fun.
that all of this is going to bundle back together because it all unbundled.
Bundle, unbundle, bundle, unbundle. So boring.
That belongs in our swag store, by the way, which we are definitely, the first thing's going to be win-win. Tell me if you want a win-win sweatshirt. I really want one. But I think bundle, unbundle would also be funny in a swag store.
This just reminds me of, talk about high-end sports rights. I am so negative on these stupid fast channels, these free.
We know. We listen to
TV.
episode number, whatever.
I bought a new TV on a little dolly for our gym so that I can watch movies while I'm on the treadmill because I'm getting bored of Bex Gentry and Peloton.
I thought you could just do that on Peloton.
It doesn't work that well. It doesn't work that well.
Wow.
Anyway, I turn on this TV and it's pushing Middlebury women's lacrosse at me as their fast offering. I can't get it off. It's you turn on the TV and it's streaming college women's lacrosse from not even big schools. And I'm wow,
God.
This is how badly this is going, is that they literally, you turn on the TV and you can't get rid of middle level college lacrosse. So that's the thing. I don't know who's got those rights.
I'm kind of worried that we're in a period for the media business where companies in news and entertainment are so desperate for revenue. We're back at the throw the spaghetti against the wall. And
Are we entering a chaotic era?
We are entering a chaotic era. So
wait,
chaotic.
Wouldn't that imply we're unbundling? But I thought everything was bundling again. Which era are we in?
No, we're doing these are great questions, Dave. So we are in some portions rebundling. So the news this week, Comcast, the cable company, you can now get Netflix and Apple TV Plus and something else with them. And so we're rebundling in that part of the market, which everyone here is a big fan of YouTube TV. So we know that that's already been happening. But now we're in the oh, getting pennies for my traffic with extra bot verification is going to save my news publishing company. And I'm like, no, it's not.
No,
I'm sorry.
It's really not.
And by the way, the 30 minutes you just spent talking about it, you should have been doing something else to save your news company. So some things are chaotic, some things are reconstituting, but I'm actually pretty concerned because we saw many waves of media companies chasing pennies, trading their analog dollars for digital dimes. And now we're in like fractions of a penny that people are trying to build real strategies around. And they're missing the bigger picture here.
But what would you do? I mean, Jess, I think that's all right.
What is the bigger
picture? But if you're
picture?
not the information with high value content and a subscription model and like having like been smart about avoiding this stuff, and you're just like, I generate content, but content is free and my content is not better. Like, what would you do?
I mean, if you can't generate content that is 10x better than something else out there,
people can't do that.
You shouldn't
But
be
that's what I'm
generating
saying,
content.
Sam.
Do
Like,
something
isn't
else.
that the strategy, which is make great content?
But most people
Or
can't
shift
do that.
business models.
Well, not every business is a good idea.
I think they should start selling things on Facebook Marketplace.
Games. I think they should pivot to games.
They should just do something else.
But they're not going to just like give up. I think you're right about the whole thing, Jess. I just think like if you're an operator and you're like, oh fuck, like what do you do in this era? Because I think you're just kind of screwed.
Yeah, they're screwed. But you know what I would do? I would dramatically right size and restructure my business, and then I would look for some green shoots of areas of strength where you can do something 10x better, and maybe you have to start something new within your ecosystem. But I would not be in the business of writing articles about the 10 top guitar solos that ever existed, because that game is over. And I wouldn't be trying to save 10% of that revenue, because this is what people don't get. They like, the opportunity cost is huge in these things. And so the time spent on like a mediocre strategy that isn't going to solve the problem is like the problem. And people waste a lot.
Just to push you for a second, I agree with you, but like you're thinking like an owner because you actually own a media company and operate it. Like most people who run these things are just operators and like they don't own it. And they're like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? Right? Like, I mean, so I think that's the one thing.
You burn the boats and you build something new. I mean, these people are talented.
But Sam's
have
right.
Talented people.
You can't do that if you're not the owner.
I think that's the key thing, Jess, is are they actually talented?
I think people are. And I think there's talent in their
Sam,
newsroom.
you've been to these media conferences. Come on.
They're very talented. They're stuck. Everyone's
burn the boats.
Everyone's been looking for a new strategy in media for literally
They're looking for a new strategy in all places except make great content.
I know, but it's hard to.
I don't know. I think it's much harder than it sounds.
They're punch drunk on the algorithm.
Somehow BuzzFeed has doubled its value from $30 million to $70 million in market cap. What are they doing? Because they're clearly doing something right.
It's on the rumor that it's on a story we wrote. I'm glad everyone here reads the information.
I'm really into this idea of
they might sell hot wings.
Make algorithm proof
I like
strategies.
Dave, that was the opening manifesto of the information. I wrote make algorithm proof. It was my opening manifesto. That was exactly what I wrote.
Was it? Like, this is all I've been thinking about, because like D2C is like absolutely dead now. Media, basically all of this stuff that depended on the algorithms for distribution in one way or the other, whether it was organic distribution or paid, no longer works. And so the only viable strategy for anyone right now is to make algorithm proof stuff, right? Whether it's products, media, or services.
What that is, you know what? Algorithm proof is directly to the consumer supported.
Yeah.
You need the distribution and value to the consumer, which is like saying build something that people care about.
And we'll tell each other about without an algorithm, right?
Right.
Hold on. Guys, Sam, for the first time in his life, has not been able to talk over you to get in. So I'm going to actually let him have a word here.
I couldn't agree more. And so the way we've been playing this is our creator investing strategy, right? Which is you find creators, right, who have built cults around them in super specific verticals where they are the trusted brand, right? Whether it's in lawn care or terrariums or something like super weird and niche, there's a community around it. And they have structural advantage, which is a CAC of 0, because the people actually trust them and it's a durable audience as opposed to just
It's not exactly a CAC of 0.
damn close.
All
And
right.
it's not really a durable audience if your distribution is through an algorithm like Instagram.
Well, yeah, you can't. I agree that you can't be. It's a precarious thing if your distribution is like caught up in TikTok or something. But like, there are ways to do this. You're a creator. You're the trusted like cult leader of some weird ass shit that's super vertical. People love it, but it's not everyone. You are their leader, right? And then you have multiple ideally places to touch them, whether it's newsletters plus YouTube plus whatever. And the value is they trust you, right? And you can put multiple products out through them as long as they're good in quality. And there's great businesses to be built doing that.
The problem, just to push you, Sam, is that most of these creators don't put multiple products out. They do one
I
or
agree.
two, and then they're screwed when that product runs its course. Their CAC starts to go up. Like there's all these problems where they can't actually build sustainable businesses.
The key that's happening, the shakeout that's happening in the creator world right now is there are creators who are actually entrepreneurs, right? They've just figured out that they should build a community and a cult first, right? And then they kind of layer products on top. Britt, you were an innovator in this a long time ago. You may have been ahead of your time, but like there's like a bunch of people who are like treating this as a truly entrepreneurial activity, and they have a plan and they're doing multiple products and they're tiering things and they're reinforcing. And then there are the people who are just like fuck boys and or happenstance to have a big audience. Those guys are screwed. They're not real entrepreneurs. But finding the real entrepreneurs who are building trust first and community first, if you want to be algorithm proof, is absolutely key. Yeah. I mean, Jess, even the information is this somewhat, right? You started out with yourself and some core reporters and built a brand that's like algorithm proof, not because no algorithm can ever eventually recopy your news, but because people actually trust you to have gotten it right? And like they trust you to be first with it and do independent reporting that the algorithm can't do.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I really think it's like pretty black and white. Like we've seen a lot of media companies whose thesis has been to ride a tech wave, and that has by definition is not where value will be created. And that doesn't mean you don't leverage new tech waves, turbocharge your superpower as an organization, but it just it's really stupid, and it's happening again with AI. And I think you're right, Sam, like that puts a lot of businesses in jeopardy, and many of them will kind of trudge along for a while. And smaller companies and owner operated companies do operate differently, but I think like it is sad to me because by having all these conversations of how to keep their businesses on life support, they're not having other important conversations about building great, valuable companies and newsrooms.
It's not dissimilar to what we've been talking about with startups, where, when a startup raises seed funding or, Series A funding, they should be using that funding to build a durable business, not,
right,
get the next round of funding, right? Like it's kind of the same thing in the media business. If you're making all of your content to get the next distribution from the algorithm, you're doing the same thing. You're not actually building a story for an audience that really cares about you, that will come and find you independent of the algorithms. It's like the same kind of a thing where, build a durable business now that has a direct connection with the customer and that wants to pay you, right?
Pool cleaning.
Yeah.
I think this is all, and Dave, I like that you're comparing it to broader startups because there was this era where there was this false sense that doing this was easy. There was the false sense that building a company that could ride this wave or some tech wave was easy. It's never been easy.
No.
It'll never be easy. And I think that we did no service by fueling that. Perception.
Except for that, you have to understand where these narratives come from, and we can maybe bring it full circle to developer conferences, which again, like I love the big tech companies. I think they do super cool shit. They have every incentive in the world to do the Pied Piper thing and be like, build on our platform, look at the cool stuff we're doing. Like they need an ecosystem around them, right? And so I do think like, there is a Pied Piper-esque, element to a lot of the developer conferences. Like, who's the audience? Is it consumers? Nah, not really, right? They're just going to get it shoved down their throats at some point, right? Is it partners? Man, but they are actually, when they are developer conferences, they're really partner business conferences. And the story is build on us, because it locks in our ecosystem, and we need entrepreneurs to sit on our platforms.
And the investors, they need the investors to believe in the businesses that those entrepreneurs are building. And, it's very self-serving feedback loop.
So we say this obviously as lovers of Silicon Valley and the whole thing. Like we're the fanboys, but you also need to be able to read the situations for what they are and be sober about it. And I think to your point, we're in an era of like when consumers start caring or paying attention to developer conferences, you're almost certainly in trouble, right?
Do you guys remember the NVIDIA developer conference that happened but a few months ago?
It's like there's just so many. Like, I think that's actually maybe the era we're currently in, which is when the marketing gets so big and is actually kind of like veering off into consumer targeted marketing, right?
Yeah, it's good.
When
That's a
really
great
like
point,
these
Sam.
are developer conferences, right? You know you're in trouble.
I like
zone.
that. I like that.
Okay, we're tight on time, but we would be remiss without going to the PCC and having Britt fill us in on what's happening in the world.
Oh, well, a little bit of a quiet news week. Other than that, Taylor's taken Paris over, and we have the Taylor update there. She brought more people to Paris than the Olympics are expected to. But what I'm more interested in is all of these celebrities that have done Ozempic are now talking about their Ozempic experiences and like
Casual.
blatantly broadcasting that they've done it, which I think is really interesting. Like, it's dropping the stigma of using these weight loss drugs. So Kelly Clarkson,
Like, it's
Whoopi
no big deal. It's
Goldberg,
like getting
Oprah,
coffee.
like they're all just
Oprah
like,
did a whole special.
yeah, I know. And I actually like it. I think
Once she unloaded all of her Weight Watchers stock.
I know.
I mean, Sam, wouldn't have you? I mean, you got to respect her as a business person, right?
So I think we're like entering an era where, we continue to see the weight loss drugs just be less stigmatized, and more people are taking them and even talking about taking them. And I'm curious how that's going to impact the broader society.
You know what's going to happen is it's going to become super cool to be super fat. Like, once it's too easy to be skinny,
Now it's
gonna
too hard to be
all about how
fat.
It's too hard to be fat.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
It's gonna go back to the medieval times when like the king, like it was so sexy to be fat because you meant you had food.
Bundle, unbundle, bundle, unbundle.
Yeah, bundle and bundle.
Kim Kardashian's now starting to get more hate because she's doing all this weird stuff with like taking fat out of her waist and moving it to her butt, like surgically. And
I'm not into that. I'm really not into that. I do not
you
like.
can't be too skinny, but you can't be fat.
Not into
Speaking
it.
of other PCC, Nikki Glazer's special on HBO is like all-time hilarious.
I haven't watched it yet, but apparently she
This
was
is
like
the roast of Tom Brady.
No,
but
separate.
she was the MVP of that roast, I hear.
She was definitely the MVP, but her special, and you have to watch it to the end, is like crying funny. It's so good.
It's very explicit. Okay. Do not let
it's
your
real.
children.
It's like real comedy.
My PCC that also has a roast involved is what's that show we like, Jess? Where there was a roast
more
in
specific. Oh, Hacks! I love
Hacks. Is back. Hacks is great.
Oh, we haven't started that. Okay.
Oh, guys, you're in. It is so funny.
I think it's so cool that like this person who's a good friend of mine growing up made it and produced it, and I'm like Lucia, who's great.
What's Hacks about?
Also, from the team behind Broad City. Hacks is about a sort of an aging comic who's a little over the hill, but who gets new life with her millennial co-writer.
Oh,
her like lesbian millennial 20-year-old co-writer. It's very funny.
She's bisexual. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, those are all good recs. Hacks. We got to get into books, guys. I'm like trying to build my summer Kindle reading library.
Let's do that next week. Yeah.
So we'll do that next week. For now, let's say a big thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to the back channel. We had some great commentary digesting all these announcements.
And we've been getting more emails from people, which I really love getting texts and emails from people that are listening.
We do quite listen to the feedback and discuss it and don't always dismiss it.
I want an AI that sends nice notes to people as me. Just like, I don't want to actually read them. Just be like, just send nice notes to people.
Okay. Things you should maybe not, and it depends who you're doing it with. Well, until
Wouldn't
next
that be
week.
Great? It's like, congrats on your most recent success.
That's what LinkedIn does this already, Sam. You can like instant congratulate
I know, but
anybody.
Not that good. I get that. It's like congrats on your job anniversary, but I want to be like, Britt, you looked great today.
The Sam AI would have to say something like borderline snarky and maybe awkward just to make sure that people believe it's you.
Well, I think this comes back to a point we covered before with like the fake Met Gala but as humans, our radars are totally attuned and we're just going to completely discount the bot, hello, how are you doing?
I don't know.
Job.
I think Sam could come up with a good one. And it'd just be all like one-liners in lowercase letters. Just like Sam.
No, this is actually why this is for next week. But like, I started this call list.app for myself because I hate Calendly. Turns out one of the best parts of it is as a VC, you get tons of semi-fake pitch meetings constantly, right? And like most of them, you're clearly pitches, but some of them are actually kind of hard to tell. But it means that you can no longer like email a VC, even with like any personal information, and expect them to respond, because you're just like, this is probably a bot, I'm not going to respond. Call list, however, where you're just like, no, you have to like fill out this form that I created on the internet to talk to me, is great, because the bots haven't figured out how to script that shit yet. So it's like very high quality. So it's all about creating new filters to filter in new versions of human CAPTCHA, so you actually know that you're talking to humans.
Britt, I'm surprised you didn't mention the one thing I think has gotten a lot of attention from I.O., which is that it can listen to your call and tell you if you're about to get scammed.
Oh, yeah, but only for Android users.
Raises so many questions. Like Google listening to my phone calls is not near the top of my list.
But you'd do it for your mom, wouldn't you? You'd be like, listen, mom.
Switch to Android.
But can we give a last quick shout out to, what's the robo blocking app, Dave? What's it called?
RoboKiller.
RoboKiller is the app that you all need to download. It answers all the spam calls for you and doesn't just like hang up on them. It actually spams them. So it starts trolling the person calling
I love
to try to get them to stay on the...
And it records it so you can listen to it. It's amazing.
And then it records, like it'll be like, well, tell me why you need to drop off a package at my house. Oh, so what are you doing today? What'd you have for lunch?
I got so angry with a collection agency once that I like did all this personal research and started like just going after them like in reverse. It was very gratifying. I love it.
Well, anyways.
Okay. The technology descends. Until next week, friends, have a good one. And thanks for listening.
See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.